It's time to get your geek on as we roll for initiative on another episode here on Chat TPK, the home of all things geek culture. It's me, Mike, and I'm so pleased to have you join us here on the pod for yet another deep dive into D&T. We bring you weekly content here about video games, movies, and TTRPGs, so be sure to follow us on places such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Twitch. Show us some love with a kind rating and share this with your geeky mates. Also, be sure to answer our weekly polls and Q&As. And finally, join us on our Discord community to interact with both myself and our other contributors throughout the week. With my housekeeping done and dusted, I have got the pleasure of welcoming back two returning guests for today's discussion on the changes to wizards and also spellcasting within the new Player's Handbook. Some say he has expertise in insight checks and uses Mage Hand to itch the small part of his back. It's none other than Rick. Good evening, Rick.
Alakazam! It's
Beautiful.
me. Hello, everyone.
It is, Rick. It's wonderful to have you. Would you say you're a bit of an expert on spellcasting, Rick?
There are so many spells that a man could never be an expert unless he was actually a wizard. I think I know a spell or two.
Yeah.
But spells are largely about reading comprehension.
With the wording, I would totally agree. And we're also joined by someone who uses a stuffed ferret named Sparkles as his spellcasting focus. And his favourite spell is Prestidigitation because it's quicker than showering. It's Martyn.
Hi.
Hello, Martyn.
I'm glad that my thing was a stuffed ferret because you do not want to know what I do with Mage Hand.
Good to know. Good to know. One can only wonder. Now, as I said to Rick, you're a bit of a buff on your spellcasting as well, and that's going to be really, really helpful today because I am probably, as they would say, a layman regarding spellcasting. I've never played it as a player, or should I say, never played wizard as a player, and I feel like that may have impacted my ability to run spellcasters as a DM. I'm more of a martial guy myself. What do you think, Rick and Martyn, wizard as a class has that makes it better than everything else?
Well, as many of you may remember, wizards are my go-to. One of the reasons is that they can do everything that every other class can, and in many cases they can do it better. One of the best martial classes in the entire game is a Bladesinger wizard. So there you go. They've got that's martials covered.
Yeah,
they can do stealth as well, if not better than rogues and rangers, because they can be invisible. They can do
invisibility and that
spells
sort of thing. Yeah.
that require
Cast
that kind of stuff.
At level 7. Bam! I'm not even on this plane, but I can see into yours.
Yeah, exactly. They've got similar, obviously not the same spells, but similar levels of damaging spells to high-level sorcerers. They've got warlocks pretty much covered because of the same kind of reason.
Mm-hmm.
The versatility of the wizard, I think, is what attracted me to it and why I keep going back to it.
Yeah.
I really like playing a wizard because you can role play as Merlin from The Sword in the Stone and just be a batshit crazy guy. And everyone's like, yeah, that's what wizards are like.
I can really see you doing that some justice, Rick. I think you not saying you're batshit at all, Rick, but I can just see you as a crazy old wizard for sure. Yeah. So I think the point you made about blading as well, I think they can do similar sort of damage potentials, if not more than something like a paladin could. So yeah, I mean that's a very fair point. Now, compared to classes like barbarian and ranger, which have had a bit of a overhaul, let's say, in the new PHB, wizard hasn't. And because it hasn't had as much tweaking as others have, because it probably didn't need tweaking in the first place compared to the others, we will also just have a bit of a chit-chat about the changes to spellcasting in general as well. Shall we begin by just discussing how the base class of wizard is changing slightly, and we can just talk about how things as a class feature, how they change at different levels, and then we can crack open the tin of subclasses that this PHB is bringing to us. So, what is happening at level 1? Anything exciting here?
Not really, to be honest. There's
Okay.
a couple of little bits. So I wouldn't say much of it is exciting, really, in the terms of the wizard changes. It's really just good quality of life changes that go away to make the wizard a little bit more on par still with the changes that they've made to the other classes. So a lot of the
Like
things that they've
mastery
changed.
for the others, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that they've changed are really just because they've changed in the other classes. It only seems right to do with them. But the first real change I'd say is Ritual Adept is probably the
Yep.
biggest change at first level, where instead of how it used to be, where you used to have rituals prepared and all stuff like that. Now, as long as the spell is in your spell book, if it's
Yep.
got a ritual tag, you can cast it without preparing it, which
Which
is
used to be
great.
the case for wizards anyway, but it wasn't very clear. So now, hopefully, they've cleared that up because it works differently for wizards and clerics who can both cast ritual spells. Clerics have to have the spell prepared, and then they can cast it as ritual. Wizards just have to have it in their spell book.
Okay, so that frees up some slots for other spells then.
Well, it has, like I say, it has always been the case, but I've played with a couple of people new to the game who've read through the wizard and gone, what's a ritual spell? Because it's not explained at all in 2014, really.
Oh dear, that isn't good.
There's another thing at level 1, which again is very, very minor. So cantrip formula, which was an optional from Tasha's, which allowed you to kind of like swap out one of your cantrips and stuff like that at level up. That's just now a core feature.
And it's per long rest.
Yeah.
Instead of per level up, which is good because if you take a cantrip and it's useless, as it turns out. So say you picked minor illusion, and illusions work slightly differently in your campaign.
Yeah.
Where it turns out that it's absolutely useless. You're not stuck with it forever.
Or you've got poison spray and you're against loads of undead who are pretty much immune to it, then yeah, that does sound quite handy actually. Especially like if you're in a dungeon or something and you don't know when your next level up will be, that would be quite useful to be able to swap out on the fly. So for level 1, that's quite minor. Have you noticed that most of the things that are being tweaked within, not just wizard but all classes really, Tasha's is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, isn't it?
A lot, yeah. Look at all these new things that have been around for 5 years.
Yeah, Tasha's did come out in 2019, didn't it? So
yeah, it is depressing to think that that's 5 years ago, but yeah, it is 5 years ago. Essentially, this new PHB is just a shiny new version of something that actually is already out there.
Bit of a coagulation.
Something that is new at level 1 and is not something that was an optional rule or anything in Tasha's before. It used to be that the number of spells that you had was based on your intelligence modifier plus your wizard level. Now it's just a fixed value that will change as you level up, so it's not dependent on your stats.
Again, good for newer players, good for players making a wizard. Say if you're joining a party at level 8, you don't have to do all that mental math yourself. You just look at the table. Quite nice.
Yeah. And I guess it doesn't hinder. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to have a low stat in intelligence for wizard, but maybe for roleplay flavor.
Roleplay.
But yeah, that's fair enough. That's a good point, well made. Regarding the level 8 part, or having to do the extra math, we don't want to add more barriers to making a new character. So yeah, fair play. As we go through the levels of the wizard-based class, what do we have in store for us at a second level, Rick? Anything interesting or worth noting?
Yeah, expertise in a knowledge skill, pretty good.
Yeah.
So
something like history or arcana.
Yeah, history, arcana, religion, if you want. So you can have a wizard that actually knows their stuff.
Instead level 2, you get a +4 to it. Or from the proficiency bonus,
plus your skill.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It's good.
Yeah.
Like Martyn said earlier, though, getting better at skills than a rogue suddenly. Well, not better. but treading on their toes, suddenly you're knowledgeable.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense. Wizards should be learned, shouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's thematic with that bookish kind of feel sometimes of the Wizards, but when they've got the options that they've got, I think maybe I don't want to say they've taken it a step too far, because I like the premise in general, and being a wizard player, I will absolutely make use of it, but nature, religion seems a little bit maybe possibly on the edge of pushing it for me.
Yeah.
You only get one though, don't you?
You only get one, but considering that you've got Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, all of those things already kind of feel quite bookish, fit with the narrative, the feel of the wizard, and then you've got Nature and Religion, which to me just seem like someone else's business.
Yeah, Nature, I guess more Druid and Ranger sort of based.
But if
unless
you're
you're like your Volothamp Gedarm, who is a very knowledgeable, in inverted commas, adventurer, but he's not a wizard. He's more of a bard, isn't he? To be fair.
Don't believe a word that man tells you.
No, my current Team Annihilation party absolutely hates him.
He's quite hateable, isn't he?
Yeah.
If you're a divination wizard, though, based on, say, the ancient Greek oracle, they were very religious.
Yeah. So I'm sure we could find a plausible way.
You could ram religion in there, ram nature in there, and go, I read about these berries in this book. Or you use nature for a lot of beasts and monstrosities. So, especially monstrosities are generally cobbled together of two creatures, and a lot of their lore says, oh, this creature was made by wizards who didn't know when to stop. So you could go, oh, I've read about this in the journals of Akuntep, where he spoke about making a chimera while he was sleepwalking, or
Yeah, no,
something fun like that.
That's a fair point for sure.
You can have your reasons for taking any skill, can't you?
Yeah, you could justify it some way. Now, level 2 used to be the level for wizards with which they actually got their school, wasn't it? But that's been changed because they uniformed all the subclasses for every single class to level 3. So, Martyn, level 3, what does that bring in store for new wizard players?
Well, you've got, of course, changes to the subclasses, but beyond that, all wizards get 2 free spells from the school that they choose at this level, and another free spell each time they gain access to a new level thereafter. So I think that's a good one. So as soon as you pick a school, you're going to get 2 spells from that school, which is great, because the amount of times where you were maybe playing a divination wizard or something, and the vast majority of the spells that you had were maybe evocation or something like that. Sometimes it was a little hard to kind of shoehorn that in. And this is one of the things that we'll see as we start going through these subclasses in a minute. They've made it much easier for your school to actually be useful in terms of the spells that you have in your book.
Now, is it the feature Savant that would let you utilize spell scrolls but cheaper? Was that tied to your school?
So the Savant basically allowed you to copy spells that were of your school into your spell book for half the price and time, I think it was.
50 gold pieces or something?
Yeah, so it was less monetary cost and less time cost invested in copying them over, which honestly very, very rarely made an appearance in any games that I've played or run. It did sometimes, but not massively often.
Yeah.
This is why they've changed this. Yeah, so this is why they've changed this now. So instead, when you reach levels and certain points, you pick up automatically the choice of 1 or 2 spells from your school, in addition to the ones that you would normally then be able to add to your spell book as the levels progress, which I think is great.
Which actually really adds to the versatility of wizards. Because it would used to be that you would have to sacrifice a couple of your spells to pick up ones of your schools so you could get the bonus for them, especially evokers and illusionists, where you might not actually pick up a spell of illusion
because as a scroll, or
you might never see one unless your DM actually caters the adventure to you,
Yeah.
you might never see it. And loads of people run pre-written modules in which I think I've seen one scroll in a pre-written module.
You see Magic Missile quite a lot, to be fair. Like, that's one I normally see in modules, or I think Fireball's normally quite a common one. Obviously, Fireball's always. But yeah,
But then you need the downtime to put it into your spellbook as well.
Yeah. So this kind of eradicates the need for that and the faff of it. So yeah, that's a bit of a tick in the box. We're going to go through the different subclasses just a little bit later on, once we've completed the full look at the base wizard features. But just a quick thing to mention on that, though. There are 4 this time round, compared to in the previous PHB there was 8, wasn't there?
There was
a bit of a slimming.
I think everyone gets 4, don't they, in this new PHB? I think that was the plan, for everyone to get the same. Like we said with Barbarian on the last episode, doesn't mean you can't use the old ones though.
That's true. Yeah.
So if you do want to be that blade singer that I mentioned before, fill your boots.
It was something I looked
seems
at.
Fair, right?
It does.
I did like the sound of blade singer, and it's a shame it hasn't made the crossover to here. But I can probably see why they've picked the 4 probably most commonly used classes.
I think they're the most wizardy classes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying before, with wizards and their spread, their ability to kind of fill any of the niche in the party, by not having blade singer in this one, it's made those marshals actually be more important.
Yeah, because if you put blade singer in, they would give them good AC again, weapon mastery, still be a full caster.
Good speed.
Yeah, they increase their speed, so they tread on the toes of the barbarian, the monk, the fighter, and
probably
the ranger, because because
of the burst damage as well.
Yeah, well, you can get your shadow blades out, can't you, and do more damage.
Fair. So it gives everyone, makes everyone else's subclasses still have some value. So yeah.
I also think it's a good change, because if you're a brand new player and you're like, my class fantasy is that I want to play a wizard, I want to be whatever, an illusion guy. Then you have to read through all the wizard subclasses and you go, okay, right, we're down to illusion, at page 56 of wizard. What does this one do? Okay, it does a little bit of this and a little bit of this. Cool. Maybe I'll play this one. And it turns out that of the 9 you've chosen is number 6 in power. You feel a little bit crappy about it, right?
Yeah.
So now there's 4, and they have different flavors totally.
It's basically just a simplified version of it all, really, isn't it? Just so it's much more accessible for brand new players.
Makes it a lot more accessible. They sort of have in their name what they do. Which, if you'd never... Say you picked up the Player's Handbook for the first time, you'd never played D&D to know their schools of magic, you'd be like, okay, right, what's conjuration? What's divination? Oh, I've played the Elder Scrolls. Maybe restoration is one. No, that's not a wizard thing you can do. Much better to just have 4 major categories. This one is the anti-magic one. This one can see the future. This one blows people up. And this one shows things that aren't real. Done.
Yeah. Not as overwhelming as those original 8. So that's obviously the subclass choice you get level 3. Is there anything additional to that, or would it just be the first subclass feature?
Well, that's going to be it. So you're going to pick your subclass. That's usually kind of it at level 3, or whenever you pick your subclass. That is your choice, because when you get that, you get any of the associated benefits that you usually pick up with that initial one. So like as soon as you hit that subclass, for example, in the old divination wizard, you've then got portent.
Yeah,
it's like straight away. So all of the stuff that would normally happen when you pick up your subclass, you're going to have all of that, but the vast majority of that hasn't changed.
Okay.
It's just which level you pick it up at.
Yep. Just to make it unified for the other different classes. So level 4, what can we look forward to at level 4?
Some feats.
Yeah. ASI.
Ability score. Yeah, ASI. Yeah. Fair. That's
worth noting. All all feats are half feats now, so I've not seen them, but I know that all feats are half feats. Correct.
Sorry.
It's going to be great for buying shoes.
You could buy one shoe and just chop it in half.
As you say, half feet.
That was awful.
For those that haven't explored how feats have slightly changed, what would you be able to shed light on that for?
So every time you take a feat that isn't an ability score increase, well, the ability score increase is a feat now, but more on that story later.
Okay.
We can pick a feat that increases one of our stats by 1.
Mm-hmm.
So bumps you in by 1 and then does something else as well.
Perfect. So you are still, because that is I think the big trade-off of most feats is like your stats, your ability scores never really seem to improve, which means like you're not really going to start to hit harder or hit more often with spells, or your DCs won't get any higher. It's it's quite frustrating.
Yeah, but it feels really boring to just add 2 to a stat.
Yeah.
When you level up.
Yeah, it does. It does. But in the long term, it probably does pay off, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
then
it's one of those.
Sod's Law, you'll find in a few levels' time like a intellect headband, a headband of intellect that's just going to basically wipe out those ASIs you've done previously. So it's risky business dumping it on ASIs, just in case, or a belt of dwarven strength or something for a fighting class.
But worth having, just in case you happen upon an anti-magic zone, or your equipment gets stolen, or you get arrested or something.
Yeah, true that. Make a fair point. Level 5 for wizards is looking like
it's all right.
Short and sweet. Yeah, short and sweet. So it's a new feature at level 5. You can now swap one spell from your spell book, so you can take one out and put a different one in whenever you take a short rest. So you used to be able to completely change your entire spell book really on a long rest, which was great, but it did mean that if halfway through the day something threw a curveball at you, you were kind of stuck with what you had. Now, if you've had a short rest and you can kind of foresee this curveball or whatever it is, you can change one spell in a short rest.
Stuck in front of a really hard puzzle that you need help with, you can put one of your divination spells in. Know that there's a big bada boom behind the door that you didn't think was there before. Put one of your offensive spells in. It's good. And you also get level 3 spells at this point, so you get a massive boost in power anyway. You don't need something like extra attack or whatever. Oh, and you cantrip scale at level 5. You eat well from the buffs table as a spellcaster at level 5.
I feel like what they've done with quite a few different features that required a long rest, they've kind of taken quite a few of those and then have now upgraded them somewhat to make it at a short rest. They've done it for quite a few features.
just kind of like put a little pinch of it onto a short rest. So like we were talking about with barbarians, getting one charge of rage back on a short rest, stuff like that. I think it's good. I think it's good. Part of me is it speeds the game up. I think it makes your adventuring day a little less deadly, which is going to make it more likely that your party are going to be like, well, we've got nothing left or next to nothing left. Let's short rest and let's wait until tomorrow and then go into situations where they are absolutely at full beans going into something that you're like, I really wanted you to have had 2 or 3 encounters before you met this person or something like that. So I think it can make people less cautious because they've got the ability to get things back on a short rest.
It is very hard to DM for an overly cautious party, though. So it is nice to
like
push them to actually be heroes.
Yeah, fair. Nice. So as you say, that's a pretty tasty level up for wizards on that one. Moving on to 6, anything worth noting there?
I think as a class, really now, there is nothing between level 5 and 18 that changes.
It's more
There's
just ASIs,
a few little changes. ASIs, more spells in your spell books, things like that. Most of the changes that happen between 5 and 18 now are little things that they've tweaked in the individual subclasses rather than the overall class in general. it
So
wasn't
probably
broke,
jump ahead a bit, then.
so there wasn't a massive amount to change. So really, next thing that's class specific is going to be at level 18.
That is a big jump. Okay, I imagine because the rest of the changes are more subclass based, aren't they? So
yeah,
what does level 18 get?
Spell mastery, where you can cast a spell without using a spell slot, but it has
of a particular
changed.
level, or
A first level and a second level.
yeah,
and you can cast them like at will, essentially.
Yes. So spell mastery, you get at level 18 is pretty good. Pick a first level and a second level spell, and you can cast them without expending a spell slot.
Perfect. That's going to be quite useful for outside of encounters where you're saving your big spell slots. Yeah.
This has seen a change, actually, because a lot of people would use it for Misty Step and Shield, neither of which are eligible for spell mastery anymore. It must have a casting time of 1 action now.
And Shield's a reaction,
so
isn't
any
it?
of your reactions and your bonus actions, which part of me feels like this has got something to do with silvery barbs.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because silvery barbs at will would be devastating.
That'd be so annoying. That would be so annoying because it doesn't use any spell slots, does it? So
how many times a day can you make me re-roll things and give someone advantage? As many times as I want.
All of the times.
That would probably break the campaign, or break the DM.
It would break your DM. Yeah.
Fair play. Okay, so 18 gets mastery, and moving on to quite a common feature between the classes that I've seen so far is the epic boon. So on level 19, just like the barbarian that gets the epic boon, is that going to be a feature for every class?
Yeah, all classes level 19.
Yep. Everyone at level 19 gets this epic boon.
And as we said last week, they're normally, or they were, given as post level 20 rewards, but now, they are featured at a level 19 for all classes. The one that they actually recommend you taking as a wizard is the Boon of Spell Recall, which gives you extra intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, which is pretty good. Obviously, quite useful if you are casting spells. And when you cast a spell using a level 1 to 4 spell slot, you get to roll a d4. If you roll that level, if you roll the number of the spell's level, you don't actually expend the spell slot, which, that's a pretty useful boon.
Could be really
I'd want to
good.
read that a little bit more.
Could be really shit.
Yeah, I'd want to read that a little bit more, maybe get a little bit of clarification on that one already. Because if you roll higher than the spell's level, does that mean let's say if you used I know that you've got a 25% chance that you're not going to cast the spell. Use a spell slot even, sorry, I should say. Yeah.
There will be sessions where you will do that every time. There will be weeks on end in which you never do that. And you feel like you've wasted your time while the fighter's using teleport 30 feet every round after making every attack. And you're going, I can't roll the right level.
It seems, like you say, the dice are fickle. It could be amazing. It could be terrible. The chance of it being terrible would probably make me pick something else as a wizard. You're level 19. Do you know what I mean? You've already got you're going to have some at-will spells anyway, like we've just been looking at there in spell mastery and stuff like that.
Half of that boon's ability, really.
That 25% chance of not using a spell slot.
You're already casting your 2 favourite spells, level 1 and level 2, without anyway.
You've got it for threes and fours, and in fairness, it's every time you cast one of these, you could do that. So it's not just like a once.
I don't know. Or once per short rest. Or
it's not what I would have picked. I'll put it that way, and I don't know that many of them, and I could already tell you right now I wouldn't have picked that one.
I definitely think we should have a look at all the different types of boons that they have got, because they have expanded that list compared to previous.
There's 12. There's 12 in the new book. There's 12 in the new book, so it could be worth having a whiz through those. That'd be very interesting, actually.
Nice.
Is signature spells unchanged the next level? It doesn't appear to be in the breakdown that they offered out.
So we've nothing past that. No changes at 20. So signature spell is still there. So you're a level away from being able to pretty much do better than that anyway.
Yeah. Perfect. So that's how the wizard looks in the new PHB. Let's quickly go through each of the subclasses as well, so people at home know exactly which one that they could potentially go for and choose the next time they roll a wizard. All 4 of them are basically from the previous, well, they're all 4 schools of magic, and as we discussed previously, you said they're the most wizardy. I always look at probably the evoker being the one that does all the damage. Like, you think evoker, you think fireball, you think of big explosions, big damage. What does the what's the evoker getting as we progress through it as a subclass?
The evocation wizard, or the evoker as it's now called, as you were saying there, Mike, it's the one that you think of when you think fireball.
Yeah.
Because that is an evocation spell. They are massive elemental damage dealing wizards, and for the most part, they've done very little.
Okay.
Very, very little. So there is only really one or two changes. So that is potent cantrip and sculpt spells have swapped places.
Yeah.
So you now get sculpt
at 6th
earlier and potent cantrip later. Or is it the
other way
around?
around?
I forget which way around they went.
Yeah.
Other way around.
Potent at 3rd, sculpt at 6th.
That's the one.
So you have to blow
And
up your friends
they've
for a
also
bit.
changed. And they've also changed potent cantrip ever so slightly. So potent cantrip, for those that you don't know, cantrips, if they require a saving throw and the creature makes the save, they do no damage. However, potent cantrip meant that even if they made the save, they took the damage. They took half of the damage. So as if it was like a leveled spell,
Yeah. Like
half
poison
on a
spray.
successful save.
Why do you love poison
so any
spray
of
so
the
much?
cantrips. Why?
I don't know.
What is it? But you've got loads.
It's one of the wizard's cantrips, isn't it? So it's just the one I can think of.
You've got quite a few, but they've expanded that. They've made it a little bit better. Now, if the cantrip requires a to hit roll, such as Firebolt, which
but not
is
poison
top
spray.
tier, but not poison spray. Firebolt, for example,
Yeah.
if you miss, it still deals half damage.
Oh, that's pretty good. That it was strange that it did eliminate range spells before, but now it's kind of bundled it in, which is good.
Yeah, and really, that's it for the evocation wizard.
And sculpting spells goes later on then.
Sculpting spells goes later on. They haven't changed the way that it works or anything like that. It's just now a little bit. They've just switched around which level you get it at, and then that's slight addendum onto potent cantrip.
Yeah. So sculpt spells, for those that don't know, is basically like the friendly fire option, so that you can just not hurt yourself or your allies. Which again, if they are casting big things like a fireball, you're not going to blow yourself up. So that's pretty handy. Is that the major changes within Evoker?
That's it. Yeah, I think this epitomizes to me how they've approached the wizard, and as a massive proponent for the wizard, I very much appreciate that they have left well enough alone for the most part.
Good. It must have obviously been quite a balanced class prior to this, then.
Well,
it depends on how you look at it. I think people may have lost their jobs if they made it worse, because it was just like top tier. Like, how could you do that to our baby?
Yeah,
it's not called Barbarians of the Coast.
That's very true. Awesome. So in that case, then I can see the pattern here. Should we just briefly describe how each of the other 3 are changing slightly as well, or and then we can dive on into how spellcasting as a result is being tweaked.
Yes. Well, you say you can see the pattern, and there is a pattern. Sort of 3 times out of 4, the illusionist has very much changed for the better.
Okay.
So you get improved illusion, which allows you to ignore verbal components for illusion spells and increases the range by several feet. I think it's like by 60 feet. So you don't have to talk, and you can send your minor illusions way, way far away. So no one's going to know it's you, which is great, because
That's going to help out of combat, isn't it?
Sure. Illusion spells with a 30-foot range that you had to do the verbal components for. Everyone sees you draw the arcane sigils in the air and burn a hole in reality to make a scream happen 30 feet away, which sucked a little bit. But better. Phantasmal Creatures is good, replaces the 6th level illusionist feature, which was malleable illusions, which allowed you to change the nature of your illusions, provided you could see the illusions using the spell's normal parameters. Now you get Summon Beast and Summon Fae as always prepared spells, which you can cast as illusions, and you can cast them as an illusion spell, which summons a modified version and allows a free casting of each once per long rest, which means you've cast them as an illusion spell, so you can ignore the verbal components of them.
But they don't have. Will they have the same? Like, you can't actually use them to attack or to help like you would normally use with the summon.
You still can.
You still can?
You can.
So they're not really an illusion then, are they? They are physical.
Yes, they're phantasmal. They attack you in the brain?
Yeah. I guess that's essentially what a phantasmal force is. It's things you can see, and it does psychic damage, isn't it? So
yeah. They also mentioned something else in the video where he says you can cast them, but they have less health, but they can go further, which is good. And then Illusory Self used to be that a creature had to make an attack roll against you, and you could use your reaction to make an illusory duplicate between the attacker and yourself, which would make it miss, and then the illusion would dissipate. Now they have to hit you instead of just attacking you. You can make it miss. An illusion of yourself appears and you can disappear. And then they allowed it to come back when you use an illusion spell of level 2 or more. It comes back. Poof. A new illusory you. Real nice.
Very handy.
Makes you trickier. Good illusion. Good illusion subclass. I would want to play this.
That reminds me of is there a cape is it not? It's not a cape of displacement. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Which makes it look like there's more than one of you. Or cloak of displacement.
Blur?
Cloak of displacement gives. This is showing my encyclopedic knowledge.
Disadvantage.
Gives disadvantage until you get hit or take damage, and then stops working until the start of your next turn. Yeah, but there is the spell Mirror Image, which makes several illusory duplicates of yourself.
Makes me think of Doctor Strange in Endgame, where he just goes all over the place.
Yes, Doctor Strange, quite an illusory wizard. Actually, he does a lot of illusions, doesn't he? Is
he a wizard or is he a sorcerer? He's a sorcerer supreme, isn't he?
Well, yeah, but he learned his power, so he's a wizard.
The same way that Harry Potter's a sorcerer.
I disagree. Harry Potter's a jock. Never casts any fucking spells.
Harry Potter's a dick. Yeah, fair play.
In the first book, he doesn't cast a single spell, except Wingardium Leviosa, which he gets wrong most of the time.
Does he not cast Totalis?
No, that's Hermione.
Or was that Hermione? Oh, my goodness, yeah. Oh, God.
To bring us back into topic...
No. They also mentioned I want to say more bad things about Harry Potter.
we will lose half of our listener base. That thing is a national treasure.
We love Harry Potter, right, guys?
There's something else that they mentioned in the video, and I can't remember if I dreamed this or not, that you can now make your illusions tangible.
Yes, that's always been a 14th level illusion feature.
Cool.
So it says, when you cast an illusion spell at first level or higher, you can choose one inanimate non-magical object as part of the illusion and make it real. You can do this on your turn as a bonus action when the spell's ongoing. Remains real for 1 minute. For example, you can create an illusion of a bridge over a chasm and then make it real long enough for your allies to cross. And then you can stop concentrating on the spell and drop all the people chasing you into a ravine.
That's really good.
Which is great.
That reminds me a bit of your favourite item, Martyn, from a previous episode. Your
marvellous pigments.
Marvellous pigments.
Your pigments, yeah. You can make things with it. Nice, awesome. So those are the main changes to Illusionaire. Anything that's going to be changing with the other two? So we said Evoker, we've had Illusionaire. We've got Diviner, which makes you think of maybe predicting the future.
Yeah, so Diviner or the Divination Wizard. Sorry, that just sunk in. That was good. Golf claps. So the diviner or the divination
that took
wizard
me way too long to get.
So that's just sunk in for you.
Yeah. That's why
So
they play
diviner,
wizards.
you're absolutely right. They were the I can see into the future class. They're the ones that get portents, where they can replace theirs or other roles from other creatures and people in the party to be one of these dice that they've rolled, which can be absolutely fantastically perfectly timed. And again, don't see many changes. There are a couple of refinements to the third eye feature. So third eye in the divination wizard used to get at 10th level, and you could use your action to increase your powers of like perception and stuff like that. And when you did so, you could pick certain benefits that lasted until you were either knocked out or took a rest. So you'd get things like dark vision, the ability to see into the ethereal, the ability to read and understand any languages, or to see invisibility. So they've tweaked that slightly. They haven't specified what really here, apart from the fact that you can use a bonus action and dark vision's range has been increased. So unless it's just that, they're keeping that quite close to the chest.
Also says you can cast.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was just that.
You can cast see invisibility for the see invisibility bit, the ethereal sight.
Okay, and ethereal sight's gone.
Ethereal sight's gone because see invisibility allows you to see into the ethereal plane anyway.
Yeah, so it's a duplication of effort. So nothing magic there. Well, hey, nothing magic. But I think good little balances. You know, the extended dark vision is useful because so many things have already got dark vision, or the dark vision spell does a lot of things.
And most wizards you would think of tend to be a human that don't have dark vision.
That's true. I've played a divination wizard, and they are a lot of fun to play. I especially like the cascade you can get at 6th level with expert divination. So you can cast like a 3rd level divination spell, which gives you a 2nd level spell slot back, and you can then cast a 2nd level one, which gives you a 1st one back. So you can cast all your divination spells in order, as long as you do them in the correct order, and it makes it really good for out of combat divination. But then when you reach 10th level, all those options are kind of shit. This is the second podcast in a row that I've sworn, and
it's fine.
It's okay.
It's fine.
I think we've all had a go this time.
Yeah, exactly. We do have the explicit tag, so people at home, you were warned. Right.
But
let's round this.
Nothing major.
Perfect. Well, let's round up the subclasses with the final one.
Abjura clarified the language in Arcane Ward. It now suffers from resistances and weaknesses before it takes the damage, which is good, and how it should have been anyway. You can refill it directly as a bonus action by expending a spell slot. Fine. You get Spellbreaker, though, at 10th level. You get Counterspell and Dispel Magic, always prepared, and you can cast Dispel Magic as a bonus action.
Wow. That's really good.
Very powerful. Very powerful. Dispel Magic comes up more often than you would think. Easily brushed over Dispel Magic as a sort of meh thing, but if someone's attacking you with a Simulacrum and you cast Dispel Magic on it, you can delete it from existence. If there's a locked door that's got a magical trap on it, you can stop that. If someone's got mage armor on or has buffed themselves up before they fight you, you can get rid of all that with Dispel Magic.
Or they've made a summon or something.
Summons, poof, gone.
Yeah.
Magical darkness, all those illusions we were just talking about in Illusionist. So much stuff. Dispel Magic is a great spell.
It does basically everything.
But that's not all. But wait, there's more.
There's more. I think that's actually one of the reasons why Larian decided not to be able to put it into Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, it would absolutely break the game. Yeah, it would have broken the game.
If you use either of these spells and fail to dispel a spell or counterspell a spell, you don't consume a spell slot.
I think that's fantastic. It is really, really good.
Yeah.
An anti-mage mage.
It allows you to repeat that, oh my god, that was absolutely clutch attempt, during whether it's fights or exploration or whatever. Everybody knows, like, big bad's just used certain spell, I'm going to counterspell it. I've had to roll because it's a higher level spell or whatever. Crap, I didn't meet the meet the DC for it. And I can't do that again now without using a significantly higher level spell slot, which I don't know if I want to use just on counter spell. I can't hold that back. So I think that's really good. I'd say that's probably the best change outside of Illusionist.
I agree.
For the Wizard.
What's great about it as well is if you do that counter spell and you fail, next turn, dispel it. You've not used your 3rd level spell slot to do it. Dispel Magic's only 2nd level. So
but you can upcast it. Try and get,
use that spell slot you were going to use anyway.
Yeah.
And if you fail, you don't use it. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
That I can see is obviously of great benefit to the player. The DM, who is having every freaking spell he casts counterspelled, it doesn't. I mean,
Abjurers are one of the tankiest wizards as well, actually, because they get their Arcane Ward, which refills.
An Arcane Ward is better now. Like that clarification on the language on Arcane Ward, while they've just positioned it as a clarification on language, the change in the language has changed the rules as written, because the way that it was written before is that the resistances that you had, your shield didn't. Whereas now your shield has it too. So in some, depending on what damage type you take and what resistances you have, you've just doubled the health of your shield.
Yeah, gives me Barb vibes. Brilliant. That does. And Arcane Ward is essentially just a protective force field around the wizard, isn't it? So
it is until they can share it.
I think it's really good that they've put in these abilities that we mentioned earlier, where when you hit certain levels and milestones, you add a couple of spells from your spell school into your spellbook regardless, because that Arcane Ward feature requires you to have cast an abjuration spell. So now you're always going to have some abjuration spells that you can pick on from, varying different spell levels to ensure that you can keep that ward, which I think is really, really good. I think it's sensible thought through, that change.
Yeah, because if you didn't have an abjuration spell, you cannot use that, and that would just be a pointless class feature for sure. Right, well, that's a pretty quick look, but I think as obviously we didn't need to spend a massive amount of time on each of those subclasses due to the lack of change there, or the lack of need to change. The big thing to look at, though, is probably how spell casting has changed in general. So what the highlights that people should look out for regarding spell casting?
Well,
anything that comes to mind straight away for you both?
Yeah, before I go into any of that, or my thoughts on it at least, I think this is the real reason why Wizard hasn't seen much changes.
Yep.
Because obviously its core class feature is casting spells, and spells have seen some really quite noticeable changes. This is kind of how the Wizard is getting their boost, if that makes sense. So, of course, it's not just Wizards, though, that cast spells. So some of the keys that I think are going to be fantastic. So healing spells, those ones that keep you and your friends alive, well, they've been kind of beefed up a little bit. Cure Wounds does more dice. It's now 2d8 plus your spellcasting mod. Healing Word now does 2d4 plus your mod, and that's a level 1.
Perfect.
I've said for a long time that healing in D&D was pretty trash, and healing spells like this were always used either someone's just been knocked down, get them back up again. This now makes them significantly more viable to use while that person's still alive.
Level
which
1,
I think
level
is
2,
absolutely
that
fantastic.
could put them near full, couldn't it? So a 2d8 plus your modifier could, and a good roll.
And it's not just about bigger dice. Some of those healing spells have got additional features on the video. They call out Prayer of Healing, which obviously healed people, but it now also gives up to 5 creatures the benefits of a short rest as well. So any of those abilities that we've been talking about in Barbarian and Wizard and stuff like that, where you get a charge of rage back, things like that on a short rest, those kick in as well.
Now on a short rest.
Action surges, stuff like that. And that's on top of the healing that they would provide. So you wouldn't even need to use as many of your hit dice during that short rest.
That is very good,
either. So
actually.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And that's a ritual one, isn't it? But obviously it doesn't, it'll be used, isn't it not? Is it not something you cast outside of combat?
It is, because it takes 10 minutes.
It's like a 10-minute cast.
But it's not a ritual.
So not ritual, but 10-minute cast. So long cast time, but
Ritual tab has moved, by the way, to stop confusion like this from happening. It's now near to the casting time instead of hidden somewhere as a picture of a tiny book with an R on it, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like I say, I am all for changes that make things more accessible.
Mm.
And forgive me if I'm wrong here, but haven't they, or they've said they're going to be changing the player's handbook so that all the spells will have the school on them, and also the classes that use those spells, so you're not flicking through constantly. It's there.
It's one of the reasons why this is the biggest book that they've done, or the thickest player handbook that they've done, is because instead of it being an index at the back, the spell list is now embedded in the class.
Have either of you ever played...
So when you read through Cleric, you've got Cleric.
Sorry, Martin.
Fair.
Have either of you ever played Dungeon World? It's an easy into role-playing game that has a character sheet, bam, in front of you, sheet of A4, and you make 4 or 5 choices to create your character.
Mm-hmm.
Like it says, for example, the fighter, pick your weapon, it has these tags. It can be messy, it can be forceful, it can be sharp, it can be like...
It could be brown, it could be blue,
it could be any
it could
of
be
those things.
violet sky.
Is it on Steam? So I feel like...
No, it's a pen and paper.
No. Pen and paper, okay.
Like a role-playing game.
A TTRPG.
A tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah.
But that has the wizard spell list attached to the wizard's character sheet. You never need to look in a book if you're a player for it. You just pick up your character sheet
makes perfect sense.
read it.
Yeah.
It just makes perfect sense.
Again, more accessible. These quality of life updates are just trying to draw new players in and avoid warding off people that might stumble across the game through friends or through, maybe they've watched the series of Stranger Things that's going to come out and want to get hooked on D&D. It's not going to, I've got to flick through the book and read loads. No, it's all there. It's all ready. It's all good to go.
I think
I like it.
As much as this is a celebration of, hey, look at all these new things for D&D, if you've got new people who've never played a TRPG before, don't show them Dungeons and Dragons. I would say show them Dungeon World, show them anything powered by the apocalypse. It's way easier to get into. And then you can graduate. It's a gateway drug.
Because we all know how cripplingly addictive D&D is, so...
We don't really find much time to play it each week, do we? It's like a once in a blue moon, really.
I think I maybe only play about like 8 or 9 hours of D&D a week these days, which is nowhere near enough to scratch the itch. What else have we got then in the wizard? Not the wizard. These spells. Let's keep us going.
Yeah. You can move Cloud of Daggers.
Changes to offensive spells.
Wait, I was too excited about that. I came in midway through you asking about offensive spells. Cloud of Daggers is my second favourite spell. And now
it was so limited by the fact you couldn't move it, and now you can. And that just it's a bit similar to Moonbeam now, isn't it? That you can move that, and that was on a bonus action. Is it still a bonus action for Cloud of Daggers?
Magic action.
It says a magic action.
So that would be an action, wouldn't it?
It would be an action.
But if you think about like the impact of something like that, I think that's absolutely fine because you've seen what Moonbeam can do. Being moved on a bonus action. Sometimes I've gone, that's a bit much for a bonus action. So it wouldn't surprise me if certain tweaks like that could maybe be done to Moonbeam to not nerf it, but to bring it into balance with this. Because Cloud of Daggers is what? 4d4?
4d4 plus 2d4 per spell level with no save.
That's it, in range with no save. So it's not just like one target. You could move that with your action and it feel an absolutely valuable use of your action.
Yeah, it's just like a moving blender, isn't it?
Cloud of Daggers, Moonbeam, Spirit Guardians, things like that have all ended encounters before they started with us. Like all three of us on a Tuesday, we play a game of D&D in which most of my tactics when I play on a Tuesday is put stuff back in the area of effect.
With a bit of Eldritch Blast.
And that's it. That's all I have to do.
Yeah.
And stuff just
But my barbarian's learning from this and is learning that actually, if I just chuck things into it, he can be useful that way. So, yeah, perfect. Any other spells or parts of spellcasting that have got your seal of approval?
It mentions Chromatic Orb that can hit an extra enemy. That's cool.
The elemental dodgeball.
Make it a difference between, make it like the halfway point between Chromatic Orb and Chaos Bolt. The Chaos Bolt was always sort of, oh, this spell looks really fun, and then never happens.
Hardly ever activates.
The dice hate fun. So nice to have something else that can bounce around.
That's a great quote, Rick. The dice hate fun.
One of the things that I think is the best that they've done, if we hark back to episode 1, to our least favourite spells,
have they made fire
one of the
traps
ones
a lot better?
that came up. Unfortunately, that's not what they've called out, but I hope so. Quietly, I'm hoping. They have made Blade Ward better.
Yes, they have, yeah.
Blade Ward was not great. It was not great, and now it's not bad. I still wouldn't say that it's fantastic, but it's definitely not bad. It's 100% viable now. So it's, instead of it just being 1 turn resistance to BPS, it's now a full minute with concentration. So you've got that resistance for a minute as long as you maintain concentration, and forces enemies to subtract 1d4 damage from their attack rolls.
It's not bad. It's half of Bane with no save, and I would choose to cast Bane for that minus 1d4 to hit, and more for the minus 1d4 to saving throws. But
so they got less chance of hitting you, and even if they do hit you, it's still half the damage for that respective damage type. Well, obviously, if that's the damage type they're dealing. So yeah, it's slightly better. Still,
that's just the one that they've called out.
Yeah,
there is certainly going to be more.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe they'll update Poison Spray.
I don't really like Poison Spray. I never really use
it. It's actually quite good, Poison Spray. I think Poison Spray is one of the better cantrips.
I tell you what I absolutely hate: Colour Spray.
Oh, I really like Colour Spray.
Makes
people go blind. That's great.
That is a save, isn't it? Colour Spray as well.
Is Colour Spray not an amount of hit points? I've got it here.
Oh, it's 33. I think it's 33. Yeah.
Roll 60-10. That's how many hit points of creatures it can affect. Very good at low levels. Drops off hard.
I think my main experience with Colour Spray has always been from Baldur's Gate 3. Again, as I haven't played a player as a D&D player, but it never worked in Baldur's Gate 3 for me. So maybe I need to give it a go.
Colour Spray should be better in Baldur's Gate 3 because you can see the amount of hit points the enemies have. The problem is, if you're casting Colour Spray on enemies with 3 and 4 HP, you may as well just kill them.
That's true. That's very true. Okay. Anything else to add onto spellcasting? Because I think we've done a pretty good job in discussing the wizard so far.
I think the biggest next thing is they've just added loads. There's just loads and loads and loads more spells. There was already a lot to begin with.
They've just added more, haven't they?
There's loads more. Yeah, absolutely loads more. They've given in the video a few that are worth having a look at. I think they call out one in there called Starry Wisp, which seems like it could be quite interesting, and Jalazi's Storm of Radiance seems like it could be quite interesting, but just a lot more spells. And like I said, this is the buff to the wizard, really. Like, they were always the one that always had the largest possible menu of things that they could do, and that menu's just bigger now.
Yeah, so marshals get more tools in the form of weapon mastery. Wizards get more tools in the form of new spells to use.
They mentioned Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron as well, which, hey, look, if you want to play a wizard and pretend it's a witch, and you take Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron, you're not going to be able to hold back your cackles. But it's free potions for everyone.
Which is not to be sniffed at. I wonder, and I'm going to need to read it, I wonder if they've done anything about potions.
Oh, they have. It is now official a bonus action. It's now officially a bonus action.
That's what everyone was doing anyway. Okay. Smart.
Yeah. It's the most homebrewed, most house ruled rule there was. But yeah, awesome. Now, I think we probably could revisit the changes to spellcasting when they continue to deliver us with more spells that are new and also spells that are changing. I guess we could also look at this again when the PHB is released in September.
I think it might be
so
fun.
That's something to look forward to.
Watch this space to do when the new player's handbook comes out, we all grab a character and do a build?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So I've
nice.
been thinking about, and I posted it in the chat before, and it might be quite interesting, possibly to maybe record it and have it as a stream. I was thinking of a Quantum Leap inspired game where the characters were basically just ported through time, space, and different bodies. And like for the first 20 minutes, you're one class, and then you boop into a different body, and now you're magically a different class. You're a different person. I thought that could be quite interesting, not only just as the premise of a quick one shot, but also to just test out everything.
Get
quickly.
to grips with the new things that each class offers.
There is one other thing that's worth mentioning on spells before we do sign it off, and that is a new type of AoE.
The Eminence, yeah.
The Eminence. So instead of cone, line, sphere, there is now Eminence, which for the ones like Spirit Guardians that we were talking about before, all it is it's basically a donut where the point of, what do they call it? The point of origin, is not considered part of the area of effect.
Okay.
So if you were the area.
So I think it always, this is always something that's been kind of known. I think they've just given it a name, haven't they?
Which was always the case.
So that's all it is. It's a classification. Spirit Guardians and the Thunderclap that's kind of shooting out from you as well. And what's that one that's a cube that's thundery?
Thunder Wave. Yeah, it was always mentioned in the spell shapes description that you could choose whether or not the start of the spell is affected by the area, but it's nice to have it clarified.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that we've seen. We've all seen it, and anyone who plays on like Foundry and Roll20 and stuff like that, when you're measuring things out, like we're all going, that's not how you measure that one.
Yeah.
You need to, it goes that way, or I think just that little bit of clarity, it helps because spells more than anything else, I'd say, in the game are held to what they say as written.
Yeah, they take the most amount of rules law in, don't they? For sure. Okay. Right. Well, just to wrap up then. Yeah, some good things to consider when making your next wizard build. We always mention that things that are in previous books are still accessible. So if you don't really like the sound of those subclasses, then that doesn't matter, because you can still use everything from previous editions. Well, I say previous editions, still 5e, because you don't really want to mix 3.5 with this, do you? 3.5.
You'd be wildly overpowered if you mix 3.5 with 5e.
But if you were to use something like a Blade Singer, you could still get the benefit from all the new spells and the improved spells that they're releasing as well. So it's all compatible, which is really, really good, I think.
I think the concise one is, I'm happy with those changes as a wizard.
You're a wizard?
There we go. I am a wizard, Harry.
Rick, does it get your thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up. Good wizard change. I say
good stuff.
Presto.
And with that bombshell, we'll see you all next week.
I think of things that wizards say. I guess that's magicians, isn't it? Who are shit wizards.
It's like, hey presto. Yeah. Oh my goodness, fantastic. Well, as always, Rick, you do bring the humour, and we'll see all our wonderful listeners next week for another episode as we dive into D&D and look at another class. If you want to be able to choose that class, be sure to have a look at the Q&A and the polls in our Spotify chat or description, should I say. Obviously, if you're on other podcast providers, that may not be an option. But hey, join us in Discord and let us know on there instead. It's been wonderful having you this week. So from me, Mike, from Martyn and Rick, we'll see you all very soon. Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye, everyone. Have a healthy, happy week.
Hey.
But